Bootcamp begins in 3, 2, all right, good. Well, what I'd like to start with is explain to you that Chai is this wonderful assertion library. You see it's got both should and exceptions, but see the should meta programs things onto the prototype, so it's really tough to get started. How many of you tuned out? Yeah, exactly. Now, I would be glad if you tuned out. How many of you got very sad when I started doing these kinds of things? How many of you got pissed when I was doing that kind of stuff? Right? None of these are probably emotions you want to evoke in your audience, right? Anger, fear, sadness, tuning out, yeah, all bad things. So let's start over. Let me start the presentation on a more positive note. We're here to learn how to give technical presentations, and I just showed you how not to get started. Yeah? My name is Scott Davis. I know many of you around here. I almost hesitate to ask, but how many of you, this is your first time at HTML5 Denver? Yeah, this is how it's every month. This is pretty standard, so you can come to expect this. I am so glad you're here. I run this shop. We're in our 4th year now. HTML5 Denver has been up and running for 4 years now. I run a consultancy. I know, isn't that cool? Failure is not an option. We'll be here next month. I'm not sure where. It might be in my basement, but it will be here next month as well. But I run a software and training consultancy, thirstyhead.com. I've written about half a dozen books on software development, primarily web development. My first book with O'Reilly was JBoss at Work, so I spent a lot of time doing Java-based web development. I've written several books on Google Maps and open source mapping. I've been doing a lot with Groovy and Grails, web development in Grails. As a matter of fact, I've got not one, but 2 clients right now I'm working with simultaneously, both Grails gigs. But as you know, for the past 3 or 4 years, I've been spending a lot of time with HTML5. Now, I spent more time than I normally do on a presentation to give you an idea of what a decent introduction sounds like. I wanted you to get an idea of my background. Now, normally I'd be giving a tech presentation, and that's what I would do, is I'd kind of give you an idea of what my languages are, because that helps you kind of align yourself with me. But let me also say that I have been doing this, technical presentations, for over 20 years now. As a matter of fact, a dear friend of mine, Jody Fredrickson, she and I were trainers together at Executive Train far too long ago, right? She started when she was a child, but that was over 20 years ago we were doing this. So this is what I do. I give presentations at software conferences internationally. I was in India and Dubai last year. It looks like I might end up in Russia and India a couple times this year. Spoken all across the country, doing public software conferences, doing public training, private training. And so I'm really excited this evening not to just talk to you about technology, although don't get too concerned, there'll be lots of technology here, but also talking about the skills behind doing technical presentations. Now, there's a great quote from Muhammad Ali, who said, "It ain't bragging if it's true." And so once again, I'm spending a little bit more time on my introduction than I normally would, but since we're giving a presentation about presentations, your introduction, I think, is an important thing because it helps establish a rapport with your audience. It helps them understand why you would be getting up and talking about these kinds of things. So that wasn't me just bragging here. This slide's been up way too long, so let's move on from here. As technologists, we like the hard problems, don't we? As a matter of fact, in a presentation like this, that's why a lot of people are here. People aren't here because they already know the technology. They aren't here because their problems are already solved. They've got problems they're trying to solve. So you might be tempted to dig into the weeds like this and pull out the wires and trace everything down like that, and you can still do that. But you can do it at the end of the presentation, not at the beginning, like I just did you at the beginning of this presentation, right? So even though we're here to solve heavy technical issues, really, technical presentations are about storytelling. And I can even leave technical off and just talk about presentations in general. Now, normally I can read this because it's on a great big screen. Excuse me for walking over here. But this is from Wikipedia, and they say stories Storytelling is about conveying events in words and images, often by improvisation or embellishment. Does that kind of sound like a technical presentation? Yeah, absolutely. What I love more, though, is in that sense, their stories in every culture are a means of entertainment, education, cultural preservation, and instilling moral values. And shoot, that is the mission statement of HTML5 Denver in a nutshell, right? Instilling moral values. Friends don't let friends do .NET development, right? Oh, see, that was so easy. No. But you get the idea, right? So what I want to talk about this evening is not big, hairy, gnarly, super interesting technical issues. We're going to talk about storytelling and how every presentation ought to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, you can call me Captain Obvious. Obviously, we're going to take a deeper dive into this, but so many presentations are missing the block and tackle fundamentals. And so this is what we want to talk about here. Storytelling, beginnings, middles, and ends. So let's start with storytelling since we were there. So yes, we're here to instill moral values and enforce cultural norms and all that kind of good stuff. But at the end of this, they say every good bit of storytelling involves plot, characters, and a point of view. So how does that apply to a technical presentation? Now stick with me, this is going to get kind of meta on you here. I'm going to do a presentation in a presentation, so you can learn how to do presentation. Are you with me on that? Yeah? All right. So here's my presentation in a presentation right now. I want to talk a little bit about Mocha.js and Chai.js. How many of you have worked with Mocha or Chai? A couple of you, good. You like it? Oh, it's my favorite testing framework right now. So this is something that I might do. This would be the plot of this presentation. JavaScript testing just doesn't seem to be as pervasive as it is in Java, as it is in Groovy, as it is in Ruby, as it is in Clojure and a lot of these different languages. So Mocha and Chai are two really cool modern testing frameworks that bring a lot of sophistication to doing web development. A lot of sophisticated testing we can do on the front end instead of focusing on the back end. A lot of times when I'm sitting down to do a presentation, I will write the abstract first. I know that sounds weird. You're supposed to write the summary once you know what the hell you're going to talk about, right? But what this does is this kind of gets me in the mindset. If I can sit down and write a paragraph about Mocha and Chai, at least I have an idea of where I'm going. Now, that's not necessarily the abstract I might end up with, but this is at least a start, a way for me to gather my thoughts. I really encourage you, when you're getting ready to do a presentation, try to just bang out a paragraph, even if no one's going to see it, just to help you kind of gather your thoughts. What's the plot of your presentation going to be? Now, we said stories involve characters as well. This isn't going to be Huck Finn. This isn't going to be Luke Skywalker, things like that. Who is your audience, per se? Obviously, if we're going to be doing a presentation on Mocha and Chai, yeah, they're probably going to be web developers. Right, so I could say, well, we'll probably have some JavaScript developers in the audience and some testers. That's pretty broad, isn't it? I mean, I have a hard time targeting kind of a broad demographic like that. This is probably going to be harder than writing that initial paragraph. But spend a little bit of time thinking about who the characters in your audience are. You know, are they JavaScript developers who hate testing? Oh, good. That's fun, right? Because I'm a big test nerd. So I would love to get into some Spark. Testing is just a waste of time, right? Oh, man, we got to get features out the door, right? We don't have enough time to test those features. That's crazy talk, right? But we can start seeing who our characters are. Maybe I'm going to be giving a talk at DDUG, at the Denver Java User Group or the Boulder Java User Group, and I'm going to be focused on Java developers. Some of my favorite talks have been talks like JavaScript for Java developers. What's even more fun? CSS3 for programmers. Oh yeah, you want to talk about a hostile audience. Yeah, you start talking to programmers about design issues, right? Fonts and colors and all that. I'm not feeling that. I love me some CSS, right? But this is another way for you to start thinking about who your audience is. Maybe they're Ruby developers, maybe they're Java developers, maybe they're Clojure developers. One other aspect of this, and this will make a little bit more sense as we get into the meat of the Chai and the Mocha talk, is that Mocha and Chai support both TDD, test-driven development, and BDD, behavior-driven development. So all of a sudden, you've got some other people you can begin appealing to. Maybe we've got some TDDers, maybe we've got some BDDers, maybe we've got some Java folks, maybe we've got some Rubyists, maybe we've got some haters in the audience, right? All of these characters give me a much better idea of how I can hone that abstract that I started with. Yeah? When I speak over in India, I know that the audience is fairly, and Tom Mars is nodding, he's been over there in Bangalore with me as well, at GIDS, the Great Indian Developer Summit. We know that most of them are business professionals, but they also reserve about a quarter of the tickets to first-year university students. And it's a really neat mix, because I will have to target my message incredibly differently to someone who is 18 years old, right, than someone who is 8 years old who's been in the business far too long, right? So knowing who your audience, your target demographic is something else we can focus on. The last thing we talked about here is what's your point of view? What's your narrative? Now, in a technical presentation, it's almost always going to be me speaking to you. If you were here for Dan Allen's presentation, the ASCII Doc presentations at the end of last year, he was putting on some characters, wasn't he? He had some newsman hat, and he was like, see, I'm a 1920s newscaster, see, and I'm here to talk to you about ASCII Doc, see? If you were there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's very rare in a technical presentation for you to get up and do Shakespearean actors and things like that. So almost always the point of view is going to be you, the presenter. But what you need to do is figure out how you can build a bridge to the audience. I might stand up here and say, hey, you know what? I'm a JavaScript developer, just like you were all here at HTML5 Denver. Let me tell you some really cool testing frameworks I've come across. I really love them. I think you might as well. Now, if I were speaking at DJUG or BJUG, I might say, man, I've been a Java developer like you from way back, and I know how many of you in here use JUnit? That's great. How many of you use TestNG testing? Okay, great, great, great. I got another set of frameworks that are going to really appeal to you because those frameworks tend to be very TDD driven, and they tend